Hey guys, VaulSC here, hope that you're doing well. We're going to take a look at another game of Last Argument, Conquest, between Dweghom and Dweghom. It's the mirror match, but I promise you that this particular game is a lot more interesting than you might think that the matchup is on paper. We're both trying out the brand new revamped Dweghom faction, and I am, of course, using my little side project army up against Andy, who's playing with his main Dweghom. But yeah, battle for the ages, so we're going to dive straight into it and recap everything that went on, starting with the army list, of course. So let's just go with the list that I'm playing. We're both using the Tempered Creed, Tempered Sorcerer Warlord. I think that is the optimal Warlord choice at the moment. My army list really is, again, based on the miniatures that I have. The only thing I really sub out of this particular lineup is the... I could add the Ardent Keroueg and the Flame Berserkers, but I've just chosen not to use them. We're going to be trying out the new Dragonslayers instead, and we're going to be proxying the old Ragadosh from the campaign as an Exemplar. I think the Exemplar is really interesting because it gives you the opportunity to double march your enhanced speed initiates with Relentless March, and double march them into an enemy character and then duel the character, and with Tempered Goad they can't decline the duel. And of course the Exemplar has the Quicksilver Strikes to attack first, and then the duel will just continue until one person dies, and unless they're very good at duels they're going to die first. So that's kind of cool. The Slain Bigger thing is also quite useful if you're up against a character riding a monster or a monster itself, such as a Fallen Divinity. Obviously, the Fallen Divinity is going to wipe the floor with any character, but if it only has a couple wounds left after you've, obliterated it with a lot of shooting, then it's worth trading your Exemplar for their Fallen Divinity any day of the week. So it's kind of a cool character. He's quite expensive once you put all the gear on him, but he's got some fun factor there, so we're going to be trying him out. And the new Dragonslayers, obviously a bit faster, base defense 4, but they lose their Hardened. We won't go through all of the changes, but anyway, here's my list. Tempered Sorcerer is the Warlord on the Drake. No abilities for him. We've got the Earth School Sorcerer. We're trying it out. I don't think it's the best Sorcerer, but I think it's just kind of fun that you can put +1 defense on, for example, your Initiates with Herald of Stone, making them effectively defense 5 from the front with Phalanx and Shields, with reroll 6s, which is kind of comedic. And then there's the Steelshaper, Fireforged, Steelforged. So my opponent, running a much more sensible list and getting with the times a bit more since he has the model collection for it. Double Fireforged, though, I think they're still very, very good. I know that they've lost AP2 down to AP1 now, and you've got to spend a token to get Barrage, but you do get Barrage 5. I think that the Fireforged are very, very good. Same Sorcerer Warlord, Tempered Steelshaper on the Stoneforged. His ability to heal and also to put up untouchable against shooting within a particular bubble, I just think it's a very powerful choice. It's expensive, but it's powerful. Now, the Lost Ancestor, I'm not really sure if I'm sold on his abilities here. He is kind of costly for a character, but at least you have a good choice of spells here, including the Steel Skull, which is the, I believe that's the Tempered Steelshaper's ability, so that's kind of cool. Found, they are expensive for a ranged unit. I would usually just prefer another unit of Fireforged since they're cheaper. The Arcing Fire is kind of interesting, but if you play the Fireforge well, usually you're getting good opportunities with shooting. And then, of course, the whole rag here with his Dragonslayers. This is a fun one. They probably don't really need the rag in there. I do like that you could give him the Tempered Goad as well, but he doesn't quite have the dueling prowess that the Exemplar does, given that the Exemplar has the ability to Quicksilver Strikes and get Flurry and so on and so forth. So, yeah, it's a fun list. We're both sort of running things that are suboptimal. We may as well just jump straight into the game and run through it. So this is what I have coming on the board. He really only has the one light regiment, which is the whole Ballistae. I've got my Earth Sorcerer, of course, in the whole Ballistae, plus Inferno Automata, and this is the table. So we're playing head-to-head. This is the mission where you get 3 points for the large zone on the right-hand side there, 4 points if you get your opponent's zone, but it's the one on the other side of the board. You don't get any points for defending your own zone. You just got to keep your opponent off it. But, of course, course, a lot of the game is going to be determined by killing stuff. You get 2 points for a regiment, character, and a warlord. So if you fall behind on points but really wipe out your opponent's army by turn 10, you probably will still win. Looks like we've got 3 forests, a couple of hills, and 1 building in the middle. So opponent brings on the Ballistae. This is towards the central hill there, and I've got my Ballistae on the other side of the table on the right-hand flank, going towards the other hill. With the new retinue, I might add, they're kind of cool. They're I suppose out of production set from Parabellum now. Back when you used to have to spend points to have retinues to your characters, I think it's just great for filling in the stands and giving your army a lot of character. So then turn 2 is where most of the stuff hits. We're bringing in a lot of other stuff. So the sequence will be Earth Sorcerer, and then Exemplar, Ballistae, Initiates, Automata, and then the second Sorcerer with the Hellbringer Drake after that. So opponent brings on his Initiates and beautiful looking Lost Ancestor onto my left-hand flank. This is defending his small zone on his side of the table, whereas I'm just staying put there with the Sorcerer and the Ballistae for now. He's bringing in his a bit further forward. This is a bit of an eyebrow raiser, because he's effectively marched these guys 2 turns in a row, putting them in range for me to move in with my Sorcerer on the Hellbringer Drake, since it's so fast, and get some early damage. We'll remember that. Exemplar plus Initiates going in behind the Ballistae, eventually going to be overtaking them. And the idea is, again, the retinue. I love the way the retinue looks. The tactical retinue there. I spent ages painting those. This is really so that we can put the Earth School +1 defense on this regiment and make them very, very tough. So over here, my opponent bringing on his Hellbringer Drake directly opposite my Sorcerer, so I'm going to definitely have to get in some backup for them there. But the good thing is that they do have the +1 defense spell, and they do have a spell interference as well. So that is what it looks like from my end. And then finally bringing in the Automata. They missed turn 1. So we're going to come into this forest here. Then we're going to go directly after his Ballistae at the top left. Now, I initially considered putting my Hellbringer Drake here. I ended up not making this play, almost feeling sorry for my opponent here. I feel like the fire magic would have done a lot of damage to those Ballistae, but I also realized that my Hellbringer Drake would be needed to sort of counteract his one. I felt like we should have a bit of a firefight there, and given that I would have some support with the Earth Sorcerer as well, and also the opportunity to go after his character eventually with my Exemplar, I decided instead on this deployment. Although maybe going after his Ballistae and getting the free work would have been good. We ended up going with a bit of a formation here with all 4 regiments just coming in together, which I usually think that's the better thing to do, have units supporting each other. So that's what it looks like. I've got 4 regiments on. He's got 2 or 3, I should say. Note that a lot of this other stuff isn't actually deployed yet. It's just sitting on the sidelines. So turn 3, we'll be going Sorcerer, Ballistae, Automata, Exemplar, then everything else, ending with the Hellbringer Drake and Sorcerer near the end. Note that the third to last card here is the Initiates. The plan is to double march them into contact with his Hellbringer Sorcerer, hoping to win the roll for supremacy next turn and duel his Warlord with my Exemplar, which is, my gambit, really, the strategy for winning this game. So there we go, the Ballistae, I'm just moving backwards. They're pulling back as far as they can to allow enough room for the Initiates to march over them, remembering that the Initiates have a bit of a speed boost from the Exemplar's item upgrade. Then we have the Stoneforged pulling in. This is, again, I think a good thing for me because it allows me to target either of his 2 monsters. Both of them have characters riding them, and I can use that Exemplar barrel ability to duel one or both of them and hopefully pick off an enemy character to trade with the Exemplar. That'd be amazing. So over here we have the boys, the Automata, march charging into these Ballistae. Unfortunately, Ballistae are kind of tough. They're not the flimsiest light regiment in the game, so it'll take me a while to hack through them. Then we've got the Lost Ancestor moving up with the Initiates, and unfortunately for me, he does have a bit of a nuke spell, able to put a bit of damage into the side of the Automata. At least that's what I remember him doing during the game. I can't quite remember what spell list he actually chose. I don't think it was Steel School after all of this. No, so I think he was actually running Fire School on both of his casters there. Yeah, that probably was what happened, because I do remember getting hit by a spell at that point in the game, or at least a later point. So we've got the Hold Warriors. These guys are going to be needed to act as the second wave behind the Automata, and just quite important that that there's a bit of a shield for the Hellbringer Drake Sorcerer to my right there. Yep, so that is the character. There's a little bit of a line there on the above his head there, a bit unfortunate, but I just wanted to take a close-up because I think it's just quite a fun-looking model. Okay, yeah, so you can see a little black dice sitting next to that Automata up there. That indicates some wounds taken from the guy's spell. And then we've got my Tempered Steelshaper plus the Fireforged just moving in behind here on the left. They're there and ready to deflect stuff from my zone. This circle is going to be worth 4 points to him if he can get on there. But I want to sort of stay back and make him spend all of the time coming in through my left-hand flank and then shooting at him as he comes through, and hopefully getting a lot of leverage on the right-hand side of the table before this becomes an issue. So over here, we've got the Hellbringer Drake just moving forward just far enough to get a few shots off, but not too much damage here. We do have the +1 defense spell going down on the Ballistae, and we've also got spell interference here from our friends, so that is quite important, but he is doing his darndest to let off a bunch of steam. We've then got the Dragonslayers from my side of the table, just coming into the right-hand side of the Ballistae. These guys have noticed that there are 2 enemy monsters, no less, on their flank, so that is where they're going to be needed. They definitely are there to slay some dragons, and that's what they've got in front of them, so that's what we're going to be doing. Over here, the Automata having a bit of a hard time. They've been hit by a nuke spell, and they've been engaged in close combat by some Ballistae, and they're actually starting to fail a bunch of armor saves, so we're down to just one stand now, unfortunately. Seeing that's going on, I've brought in the Steelforged on the far left-hand flank. These guys are there to more or less protect the Fireforged, and they're positioned in such a way that if his initiates go into the Steelforged directly, I'll be able to blow them up in the flank, so he'll lose phalanx and shield against the Fireforged, and I should be able to win that fight pretty handily. Then he's gone with his Fireforged on his extreme left-hand side. These guys could be a little bit of a problem because they will be shooting at my Dragonslayers. Luckily, the Dragonslayers start at defense 4, and there's a bit of a forest between them and the Fireforged, so I feel like this deployment's probably not great. I feel like, if anything, they should be very close to the Stoneforged, if not deployed in a completely different position. I think they're just too far out of the battlefield here. Over here, the important play, the Initiates double marching onto the zone, so we'll pick up 3 points at the end of this turn, and then if I win the roll next turn, they'll be jumping into range, into charge range of the Hellbringer, and then the Exemplar will duel the guy on top, hopefully killing the Warlord, so that's quite crucial. There we are, looking at him from the front. Beautiful regiment. And over here, he's got another unit of Fireforged. This is a little bit of a problem for me, because it's going to mean that my Initiates are going to get shot at from very close range if I go after his Hellbringer Drake very aggressively. So there is that. But of course, there is my Sorcerer from behind there, able to put the Earth Magic for the +1 defense on them as well. Next up, we have my Hellbringer Sorcerer, and it is moving very aggressively into range of his Fireforged. The thinking here is that we can't nuke his Drake all in one go, but what we can do is hopefully shave some stands off of the Fireforged regiment to make sure that they don't do too much damage against the Initiates, giving the Initiates more time to propel themselves forward into enemy ranks and get some more duels happening with the Exemplar. And over here, we've got the Found appearing right behind the Fireforged. They are going to try and leverage their arcing fire ability to shoot over top of the Fireforged. Not that they need to, because they're size 2, so... but I mean, generally speaking, deploying them in the middle of the battlefield like this is good. They can shoot over the house at least, and it does defend them quite well from that little spot. So over here, we've got the Sorcerer on my side of the table, blasting some fire spells at his Fireforged, but unfortunately, he's got Spell Interference and Defense 4 and passes a lot of saves, and we don't get a lot done this turn. Now, my opponent bringing on his own Dragonslayers and Rag on the extreme other side of the table. These guys see that there's some Steelforged. They want to go after the Steelforged and chop them down. It's going to take them a while to get there, despite having Vanguard and the extra speed. So if I just hang back with the Steelforged for long enough, it's just going to mean that the combat happens later in the game, where I'll hopefully have generated an advantage elsewhere. So here's what the battlefield looks like end of turn 3. We have quite a good-looking lineup here. On my left, I'm probably a little bit weaker, considering I'm up against 3 regiments. I've got 3 regiments of my own, but he has 2 characters there, and the Dragonslayers. On the right-hand side, I'm hopefully better off, because I've got Dragonslayers going into his Stoneforged, and Initiates hopefully going into the Hellbringer Drake. If I can just take down one of his monsters there and break through, then I should be okay. There's another view of it from the right-hand side, where you can see, he's got 2 regiments, like his Dragonslayers and his Fireforged are very, very far apart. So hopefully I can use the delay in joining the combat to get a bit more work done. Okay, so you can see from my card order, we're going Initiates first, then we're going with the Exemplar, then we're going with Sorcerer. And the plan is just to assassinate his Warlord with the Dwarven Assassin here. So I win the roll, the Initiates charge through, but unfortunately, you can character into regiments using Entourage, but you can't do it the other way around. I can't go directly into the character. And one counter move that we talked about is that he could just withdraw with his Hellbringer Drake, which is not something that I'd really thought of until the time, and then I actually was the one to recommend it to my opponent just to help him out a little bit there. But this is really quite critical in the game, because what he then is able to do is just simply withdraw the Hellbringer Drake from combat, preventing the duel from happening. This does stop him from shooting at me with the Drake, well, he can't reform, so he can't get the shot off, but he can get the spells off, but it prevents the duel. And because of the Conquest Last Argument rules, you take 1d6 worth of damage for every one of your stands in contact with the enemy regiment. I don't think it should work that way. I think it should be, the number of enemy stands or the number of friendly stands, whichever is higher, and monsters should always count for 3, just to risk that 3d6 damage. But even so, you can simply pass the withdrawal roll as well and make that 1d6 no matter what, and my opponent does pass the roll. So this plan that I'd come up with isn't really that hot, because this guy just can escape now and pelt me with spells, and I get shot at by everything. Wasn't really quite what I wanted, unfortunately. So he does withdraw and then turns around, and now he can shoot spells at me, and we are in actually a much more difficult situation than we were before. So there he is, Sorcerer trying to get some spells off. Over here, I've got my Sorcerer, again trying to blast his Fireforged regiment, but having a bit of bad luck with the spells and the shooting, and not really getting as much done as I would like. So over here, we've got a bit of a lineup shot at the base of the Hellbringer. That's who they're firing at in the distance. The top right is the Fireforged. And then he is unleashing his Found, trying to get some shots off onto probably the Initiates. But again, Initiates are very tough, so we're not seeing too much damage happen there. Over this side, the Automata trying to get a bit more work against the Ballistae, but there's only one guy, and he's got to rally and try to get some work done with his little feeble fists. So that happens. And then over here we have, again, trying to assist the Ballistae there with the help of the Fire School spell, and whatever it needs to do from this point. I can't quite remember what happened at this point of the game, but I do remember that the Automata got wiped, eventually leaving the Ballistae just standing there. Over this side, we have my own Ballistae regiment, and they have taken a few hits there, but they are in a position to at least shoot over top of the Initiates. Again, there's just not much they can do, given that his Stoneforged will have the untouchable aura there as well, which is kind of painful. So over here, he's got a free regiment of Ballistae, having wiped out the Automata at this point in the game. On this side, we are able to fire at the Ballistae with my Fireforged, finally. Not quite in range with any Steelshaper spells, but these guys are able to get a little bit of work done with their AP1 shots. And then, as you can see there, they've been reduced to 2 stands, so I haven't quite finished them off yet. My opponent decides he wants to protect his Hellbringer Drake a little bit more thoroughly, just because next turn I can charge him otherwise. So he brings in the Stoneforged here, and this is okay for me. The Stoneforged will do a lot of damage to the initiates, but at least I have a target that I can duel with the Exemplar, and even though his character has Smite, the hilarious thing is that up against Smite, I actually have the benefit of the ability which gives me +3 evasion when I'm dueling a monster or a character on a monster. So that does work out quite well for me. Over here we have the Hold Warriors going into the forest, getting ready for a combat against the Ballistae, but still wanting to keep the forest for the obscuring rule. The Dragonslayers double marching onto the objective. They want to score some points, but they also are preparing for this stand of initiates to eventually go down, allowing them to charge through directly into the monster, and I believe they do get extra speed against monsters now, which makes it a lot more exciting. What does this say? +2 to charge when going up against a monster. So that is the plan, and this is the one regiment in my army that's got the best opportunity to take that big monster down. And if they can do that, keeping a couple of stands intact, they might be able to go through against the Hellbringer Drake as well. Over the side, my opponent has his own Dragonslayers, but they are pretty slow. They're just trying to stay out of charge range of the Steelforged because they know what's good for them, and haven't quite made it into combat yet. Over here, I've decided just to turn around a little bit, not move forward. I don't really want to initiate any combat. I just want to zone them out at this point in time and just use my superior shooting on the side of the battlefield to soften them up a bit before we start fighting. Over here, he's noticed the slightly misdeployed Fireforged and is just moving them sideways into a better position to shoot at the Dragonslayers, but hasn't really achieved a spot that he can get the vantage point from just yet. And then that's a bit of a zoomed out look. We have 3 stands of initiates and the Exemplar against the Stoneforged, plus all of the backline shooting. And over the side, it's 3 regiments against 3 regiments. Unfortunately, losing the Automata, I don't think I really played them that well, but they tried. Okay, so this turn, we're going to go with the Exemplar first to duel the Steelshaper, then we're going into Initiates to attack the Stoneforged, and then it's going to be Sorcerer after that. And we're going to leave the Dragonslayers and Steelforged to the end for the counterattack charges if anything comes in their range. So here we go. The Exemplar finally able to lay down the duel, and that's what we've all been hoping and praying for. And this is probably the most exciting point in the game where we actually get to do a duel. My opponent has Smite, but I have Evasion 3, and I've got Flurry, and I've got Quicksilver Strikes, and this duel actually took a while. It lasted like 3 or 4 rounds, but eventually Ragadosh, look at him there with his big hammer, he managed to chop down that Tempered Steelshaper and win the duel with a couple of wounds left, so that allows me to knock out one of his characters quite importantly. And then, of course, the Initiates get to bung a whole bunch of damage onto it, along with the Exemplar's second round of attacks there, doing 7 wounds to it. So we're looking good. Over here, the Sorcerer, Earthshaper Sorcerer, that is able to put the defense spell onto the Initiates, or even his own regiment. I can't remember which it was, but he's trying to make the most out of the Earth School. On this side, my opponent has 1 stand of Fireforged left, but he does have the Found as well, and they're starting to really blow up those Initiates quite badly. And then, of course, we've got the Hellbringer Drake at the back here, continuing to try and pick off what he has left on his back line there of the shooters. Over here we have the Found looking pretty intact. They've got 6 wounds each, so they're able to unleash another barrage of long-ranged fire. On the left here, we've also got the Hold Warriors in the forest. I'm noticing that if I need to, I can actually turn my Hellbringer around and go after the guys on the left-hand side to try and shore up the battlefield on the left-hand side if I feel like I can't win on the right. So that is an option for me. Over here, we have the natural goodness of the Stoneforged healing, by the way, and then the Hellbringer Drake is kind of blocked off a little bit by the Stoneforged there, so not the best positioning, but he can move around a little bit and start shooting at other things. And that's generally what he's going to try and do, move around, get some spells off, and hopefully for him, wipe out the initiates. Over the side, we've got the boys, the bros, the hold warriors charging throughout the guys here, and we're again just trying to slow them down a bit and force them to get in range of the Fireforged and give the Fireforged plenty of time to complete the shooting that they need to do. Over here, that's exactly what they're going to be doing, moving around and shooting a bit more into the initiates, just peeling off a couple of stands at the back and waiting for them to come into our range. On this side, speaking of Fireforged, he's got his lot of guys moving into the forest now and trying to shoot at the Dragonslayers, but Dragonslayers pretty well armored at this point. It won't take too many casualties. There is the option to charge the Dragonslayers into the Fireforged and wipe them out. That's not a bad option, but with that Stoneforged just sitting there in front of me, you know, partially wounded, we don't want it healing back up to full again, so I think that is really the way to go. So that's what we're doing, but as it happens, I have been unlucky enough to actually survive with the initiates. I know it's strange to say, but it probably would have been better if they died, because I could then get the full frontage of Dragonslayers in, wipe out the Stoneforged, and then if I win the roll next turn, I can go in and wipe out his Hellbringer, and that would seal the game completely. Like, that would be a win for sure if that happened. But unfortunately, I'm just clipping him with one stand, 2 supporting attacks, which will do maybe, you know, half the wounds that he has remaining, and then next turn I can kill him. Not quite the same thing, unfortunately, and that means that I will lose the initiates next, and the Dragonslayers will take a bit of damage from the Fireforged, and it becomes a tough game. Beautiful regiment, though. I love the fact that we're seeing them back on the table. That is amazing. So on this side, my opponent just trying to get a bit closer. He knows that he needs to close the gap. He knows he needs to get into combat here to threaten me, and he knows that he needs to try and pick up some points, because I'm about 9 points ahead in the game at the moment from picking up the scoring on the right-hand side. So he's double marching his Dragonslayers over here. He knows that if I win the roll, I can charge him with the Steelforged and do a bit of damage. The Dragonslayers won't be completely wiped out by that, but it won't be that comfortable for them either. On this side, he has marched into the flank, or charged the flank of the Hold Warriors and wiped them out, but it does expose his flank to a whole lot of shooting and spells from the Tempered Steelshaper. But it is the right thing to do, though. It clears the Hold Warriors out and frees up a unit of Ballistae to get in the way of something. So it's a good play. There he is there. Love the fiery color on the character there. It looks really, really good. Okay, so that's how we look on the left-hand flank. You can see that sort of concave there, trying to hold the line against the Dragonslayers and Initiates on the left. On the right, the Dragonslayers of my side have reduced that Stoneforged down to what? It's taken 16 wounds, it's got like 4 left, so what we want to try and do is chop him down and charge into the Hellbringer behind. We really need to win the roll, basically, so we're going with the Dragonslayers first so we can attempt that, and then we're going with the Sorcerer to try and put some spells out there, with the Steelforged going last. I'm expecting him to attack the Steelforged with the whole reg, and I would much rather prioritize the right-hand side of the battlefield to try and pick up a win there, as opposed to trying to salvage the left-hand side, so that's why I'm going with the Steelforged last. Now, my opponent is thinking about it the entire opposite way. He thinks that this side of the battlefield is the more important one. So he's charging in with the Dragonslayers. These guys do a whole lot of work on the Steelforged, but he did put his regiment a bit too close to me, and that means when he wheeled through to close the gap, this stand on the left couldn't get touching it. So if you look carefully at this regiment down the bottom left, if he had stayed maybe a couple of inches back, he could actually swing around and get all 4 stands touching, but because he double marched them too close, they end up not fully contacting there, which means that the Steelforged don't actually get wiped out. He leaves them there with like 1 stand left, which is great for me. On this side, we are swinging with the Dragonslayers into the Stoneforged, and then after that happens, we're getting the charge off onto the Hellbringer Drake. So this is great, this is fantastic, but I'm going to have to wait another turn before actually attacking the Hellbringer Drake, and in the meantime, he's going to be shooting at me with his Found and his Fireforged, and the Drake's going to be stomping me in close combat, and there's going to be 2 rounds of fire spells coming into them, so they might not get the opportunity. Beautiful place for them to be, though. All right, my other guy is trying to put a bit of defense onto the initiates or into himself or whatever he needs to do, but there's not much that he can achieve there. Really, this should be a fire character. You should be taking Tempered Sorcerer Fire as much as you can rather than Earth School. They've had all the time in the world, and they still haven't really buffed Earth School to a point that it's really properly viable, in my opinion. Over here, we have the Steelshaper attempting to put the -1 armor spell. I think it's, what is it called? Let's go and remind ourselves what that spell is actually called. Unmake Armor. He's attempting to put Unmake Armor onto the enemy Lost Ancestor, but I believe I actually flubbed the roll here. I recall at one point in the game I actually missed a key spell, and still, the Fireforged getting to shoot into the flank does a world of hurt onto them, which is great, leaving them with just 1.5 stands left, basically. But they are able to wipe out the remainder of the Hold Warriors and then turn around to present their flank here to the Fireforged and then charge me. So, yeah, what I recall had happened is that he had wiped out the Hold Warriors in a previous activation, so he's able to actually reform and charge without clashing. So that's what happens there. But seeing that he's done that, I decided to take advantage of the position and turn around the Hellbringer Drake and shoot directly into the flank of the initiates and then blast them with some spells, which does help to clear them up pretty quickly. On his side of the table, over here on the other side, the Fireforged march into the zone. He knows that he needs to start pulling the points back, so instead of shooting at the Dragonslayers, they're just coming in to pick up the points. Over here, my Sorcerer, as we foretold, firing some Hellfire spells at the Lost Ancestor on the left there, and on the Ballistae on the right. The Found, relatively unscathed this game, are able to fire at the initiates on my side and just pick them off with the 1 stand remaining there guarding the Exemplar. And over here we have some Ballistae, not really able to do much. They've just got 1 stand left, so can't really achieve too much there. Maybe shoot at the Drake. And over here we have the initiates down to like 1 wound left, charging into the Hellbringer Sorcerer, which is kind of hilarious, but they won't be lasting too much longer. On this side, the Steelforged rallying and chopping away at the Dragonslayers a little bit, but otherwise not getting too much done. Fortunately, he's still contesting the zone. Quite crucial. So this, probably one of the most critical turns here. We do have the initiates in contact with his Warlord again. The crucial difference is that I'm starting the turn with the character in contact with his character, meaning that if I win the roll, I can duel him and there's nothing that he can do. I am already wounded, but I'm up against a Tempered Steelshaper, I'm up against a Tempered Sorcerer, not a Tempered Steelshaper. So mathematically, I should be in the position to win it. And if I can do that, then we're going to go straight on to the Tempered Steelshaper, etc., etc. But if he wins the roll, I'm sure he's going to activate his character first. And here's the battlefield, and here's why it's important. If I kill his character there, he just won't have the spells really to go around and clean me up. So in terms of attrition, I'm going to be able to move everything on the left-hand side there to wipe out his Dragonslayers, Ballistae, and then march over to his smaller zone on the left-hand side, and hopefully win on points. But if his Hellbringer Sorcerer stays alive, he's just going to clean everything up way too quickly. Now, unluckily for me, my opponent won the dice roll for supremacy, so that pretty much seals the game. He's able to just gun down everything with magic spells, and that's that, pretty much. So over here we have the Steelshaper and the Fireforged blowing up the Dragonslayers. They're doing a world of hurt on them with their shooting from the flank as they move through there. My Hellbringer moving through to fire at his Ballistae and get rid of them, and also put some spells into the Dragonslayers. So really just has the Rag left over to pick off the Steelforged, and that's about all he can do. Beautiful looking character though, and he is touching the zone as well. Not that he'll be able to score with that character. So yeah, my spell's able to finish him off there from the top of the Drake. On his side of the battlefield, looking much better for him. He's got his Found and his Dragons able to fire at my Ballistae. I've really just got the Ballistae left, and that's pretty much it. So they are severely wounded. They're just moving on there to contest the zone as best they can until they are wiped out. His Fireforged really have to decide between turning around and shooting me versus going onto the zone. So he does turn around and shoot at me. Note that on the right-hand side there used to be some Ballistae there, but I've lost everything at this point, so he's able to start scoring 3 points a turn for the rest of the game. So my only hope really is to move around and get some points from his smaller zone. So that is what we're attempting to do. I did change my mind about the order here. We're going Drake, Sorcerer, Steelshaper, then Fireforged. Slightly different plan. But my opponent can now double march around. I luckily managed to win the roll, so the Drakes are kind of playing cat and mouse here, where my Drake's moving to the other side of the house to stop him from shooting straight away. He's got a double march over to here, and then try firing some spells at me. My Drake's severely wounded, his isn't, so he does have the lead there. But I mainly wanted to prevent a play where he double marches his Drake every single turn until he gets to my smaller zone on the bottom left there. That was sort of one thing I wanted, but eventually we get to this spot. I've taken 10 wounds on my Drake from these spells and the shooting so far, and we realized at this point that regardless of whether I make it onto his smaller zone there with my Fireforged, he is going to get the points from killing regiments and characters and Warlord, and the difference will be enough to secure the victory for him, because he will kill my Warlord here, and I won't really have anything left other than like one character and one regiment. So once you get to this sort of position, there's not too much left that you can do. He is able to eventually move through and get the last few wounds on my Drake as he moves through to there. And even though these guys might be able to make it onto the objective, the Found can actually move over there and contest, preventing me from doing that. So that's pretty much where we called the game. It was a victory to my opponent in the end, well deserved. I must say, though, that despite running a suboptimal list from my side, there were a couple of things that could have happened that would have actually caused me to win this game. One of them would have been to simply just win the Supremacy roll a couple of turns ago when my Exemplar was in combat with his Warlord. If I pick off the Warlord, well, that's 4 objective points right there, and it prevents him from double spelling me, which would have mean that my Warlord eventually survives, and I would have won on points by the end of it. So that's one thing that could have won me the game. Also, a little positioning stuff with Hold Warriors and Inferno Automata, really not needing to go after his Ballistae that intensely. I could have just sent my Hellbringer Sorcerer after them right from the get-go, killed them, and then held back with the Automata and the Warriors for a later stage of the game, so that would have been excellent. Overall, though, I think that with Dweghom, both of us are running suboptimal lists. I don't think you really want to be running stuff like Exemplar and Initiates and stuff like that. Really, I feel like Dweghom right now is probably going to be about Fireforged, Hellbringer Drakes, Tempered Sorcerer, Steelforged. I don't know about the Lost and Found. I'm not really sold on them just yet. The new Thanes are actually pretty good if you gear them up really, really well, but it's mostly about magic and shooting, just as Dweghom always has been, about that kind of gun line. But I'm kind of keen to see what people are able to do with their Wardens and their Thanes and their Dragonslayers, so keeping an eye out to see how the meta sort of evolves with this new rework, and I would say it's definitely an improvement. It's definitely better than where Dweghom were before. So hope you guys enjoyed this, and we'll see you again soon.